All right, let's talk about a skill that some people swear is the ultimate career investment, one that they say pays you back forever. We're talking about the ability to make decisions based on cold, hard facts, not on your emotions. Now, it sounds simple, right? But this is a battle that gets fought every single day in big boardrooms and, let's be honest, inside our own heads.
And really, it all boils down to this, doesn't it? When everything's on the line, what do you trust? That gut feeling, that instinct you have, or the data staring back at you from a spreadsheet? This is the fundamental choice that, for a lot of people, shapes their entire path to success. So let's actually dive into the data because it shows something, well, pretty surprising. There's this fascinating and really specific link between a particular way of seeing the world and a preference for pure, unadulterated logic.
Okay, check out this number, plus 0.1248. This is the key. Now, what it is a statistically solid positive correlation. It came out of a poll of 390 people from 63 different countries. And what it shows is a direct link between holding a certain set of values and strongly agreeing that decisions should be based on facts, not emotions.
So what's that value system? Well, in the spiral dynamics model of human development, they call it the orange vMEME. You can just think of it as the operating system for achievement. This is the mindset of that driven startup founder or the super competitive sales team. Anybody who is just laser focused on strategy, on results, and on winning. They believe this is how you get that skill that pays forever. Okay, so that's the what. But what about the why? Why is this pragmatic, results-driven mindset so convinced that pure logic is the ultimate key to success? Well, it all comes down to one thing: gaining a competitive edge.
And this quote, it just flips the whole script. For someone with this orange mindset, being objective isn't about being a robot, being cold or lacking humanity. No way. It is the absolute highest sign of skill and effectiveness. For them, clarity is competence. This table really gets to the heart of that belief. Think about a volatile market or a really high-stakes negotiation. To this mindset, your feelings are just noise. They're a liability that's going to cloud your judgment. But the facts? The facts are the clear signal cutting through all that static. Facts are leverage. They show you the opportunity that everyone else, who's all tangled up in their emotions, is going to miss completely. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. We're talking about strategies that have literally built empires. You've got Warren Buffett, who's basically a human big data engine, famously ignoring all the market drama. Or take Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund that took human intuition completely out of the equation and got legendary results. And Jeff Bezos, he didn't ask himself how he felt about selling books online. No, he used a purely rational framework to project his future regret. And from that logical exercise, Amazon was born. So here's the kicker, the real punchline from this point of view. The most responsible, the most caring thing you can do for your team or your company isn't making a decision that feels all warm and fuzzy in the moment. It's making the decision that works. Making things succeed, well, that's the deepest form of care you can show. Okay, but wait a minute. Is the world really that simple? Is it always just a clean choice between your head and your heart? Because there's a huge counterargument out there that challenges this entire idea. It turns out, modern psychology and neuroscience, they tell us this whole facts versus feelings thing is a false binary. It's a misleading choice that just doesn't reflect how our brains are actually wired to work. The science on this is just fascinating. Neuroscience shows that emotions aren't the enemy of good decisions. They are an essential part of them. I mean, they've studied patients who've had damage to the emotional centers of their brains. And these people can be perfectly logical, they can reason things out, but they make absolutely terrible life decisions. Why? Because our emotions are giving us incredibly valuable data about risk and value and context, stuff that pure logic just flies right over. So, if we ignore this, if we pretend it's a simple choice and just go all in on logic, what happens? Well, it turns out there are some serious real-world costs. So let's look at the blind spots of a purely data-driven approach. And the downsides are pretty significant. If you treat people purely as data points, you're going to destroy trust and damage relationships. That's a given. If you only focus on what you can measure, you can develop massive strategic blind spots. You might completely miss crucial cultural dynamics. And yeah, a strict cost-benefit analysis with no other input can easily lead to some really serious ethical lapses. And for a really high-profile, real-world example, just look at Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter.
It was widely criticized at the time for being an impulsive, emotionally driven decision, not one based on a sober, rational analysis. From that orange perspective we talked about, the lack of deep due diligence looked like total amateurism. And the result? The market punished the decision, and billions in value just evaporated. It's a pretty stark reminder of what can happen when you stray from disciplined analysis.
Okay, so pure logic can be a trap, and pure emotion can be a disaster. So what are we supposed to do? This brings us to the synthesis. The most effective path forward isn't about choosing one over the other, it's about a powerful integration of both. So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, you can think of it like a four-step dance. First, you start with rigorous analysis. Get the objective data, know the facts. But then you deliberately tune in to the emotional data. What's your gut telling you and why? Third, you check that decision against your core values, your ethics. And finally, you integrate your intuitive wisdom, that powerful pattern recognition machine you've built from all your experience. And you can see it right here. The best decision makers, the truly great leaders in organizations, they aren't living in just one of these slices. They operate from the center, fluidly blending analytical rigor with emotional intelligence, core values, and deep intuition. This integration, using your whole intelligence, is the true skill that pays dividends forever, not just picking one tool from the toolbox. And that brings us to a really interesting final question to chew on. We know that bringing our full humanity to the table is crucial for making the best decisions. But could that orange drive for objectivity, that relentless focus on competence and making things that actually work, could that also be its own profound form of care? It's something worth thinking about as you navigate the big decisions in your own life.